to the Leadership and Success Podcast with your host, Coach BZ. If you need to develop into a better leader, this podcast is for you. If you want to achieve a greater level of success, this podcast is for you. His mentor, Dr. John C. Maxwell, said it best: everything rises and falls on leadership. We hope to inspire you today and provide you with an insight that has the potential to positively impact the trajectory of your life. Welcome to the Leadership and Success Podcast.
Hello again, my LinkedIn audience. I'm very glad to be here and happy Thanksgiving to everyone. I have another great guest with me, Vishwas Manral, who's the founder and CEO of NanoSec. Without further ado, let's welcome Vishwas. How are you doing this morning?
Hey, thank you.
Okay, perfect.
Hey, I'm doing great and great to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Wonderful. I am really so glad you made time to talk to us today. You're actually in San Jose, right? Is where you are based? And I am in San Francisco, so we don't really live much apart. Can you tell us about your leadership journey, how you came to become a founder and CEO?
Sure, I can tell you, my journey. Again, everybody has a different journey, and I'm hopeful my journey is in my view it's been different and pretty challenging, but I can run you through it, right? So I'm a technologist and an engineer at heart. Done some of the core security standards out there. So if you used IPsec, right, which is how you're which is one of the most well used VPN protocols. I've created some of the standards around that. If you've been using a bank accounts and withdrawing money from your ATMs, connecting back to your data centers, there's a technology called ADVPN or DMVPN as it's called by Cisco, and that's one technology that I've also been an author of. So I've actually been, like I said, an engineer and technologist all along. Slowly along the way, the sort of the entrepreneurship bug sort of caught onto me. I started a company called Ionis Networks, which has nothing to do with security, nothing to do with the but with core infrastructure. It was more about analytics for out of home billboards. I ran that for a couple of years and then started NanoSec. And I'm working very closely with large companies, out of New York, some big banks, some big media companies. I started NanoSec. We saw some key critical big problems in the space, right, around workload security and containers. We found there were no appropriate solutions for that. We knew the big movement was coming, and this is 6 years back when containers were just getting started, and Kubernetes was probably just at its infancy. We saw that movement coming, and we sort of started a company around that. 2 years back, McAfee actually acquired my company, and right now, I'm actually part of McAfee. Working for McAfee as the head of cloud native security and as the chief architect of cloud.
Wow, that is pretty fascinating. What do you think was like some of the biggest challenging founding a company and getting funding and all of that?
Yeah, I mean, there were numerous challenges, right? It's like in life, if you do something different, you're going to be challenged in a lot of aspects. You may get lucky and be successful, or most probably, you're going to learn the lessons the hard way, right? And because I come from a technology background versus a business background, there were challenges right on the business side for me, right? I knew customers. I did not know the whole selling motion. I did not know how easy it is to sell technology. My assumption when I started off was it would be if I make the best technology and get the best people, we would be able to sort of be successful. As I sort of ran through the journey, I realized enterprise selling is not the same as just making a product and giving it out to the market, and that was a big learning for me, right? And I learned a lot along the way, managing teams, working with teams, continuously changing yourself because of the fact that at each level in the journey, right, when you start off, the CEO has to be, like I said, more of a product guy and technologist. As you move forward, the CEO has to become more of a mentor to teams, right? Guiding the teams, leading teams. As you move further ahead, you have to become greater at selling things. So the journey keeps changing for a CEO of a startup, and you have to continuously evolve. And there's a lot of learning in each aspect of it for me.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing your insight because I know quite a few people who are trying to start a tech business now, and eventually they would like to exit, go profitable, or maybe even go IPO or whatnot. So you've been quite ambitious in your career. What do you think has been kind of the inspiration for you? Because I think you founded not just one, but two companies, right? Or at least two. So you are a serial successful entrepreneur, which is not very easy to do because you founded Ionos Networks as well, I believe, in 2014, right?
That's correct. That's correct. So I
So what
mean,
has been the inspiration for you and the
so it's always
motivation?
been, yes, and this is one learning that I had, right? And if you're going to start a startup thinking it's going to be successful and you'll make your billions or millions, it's not going to work out for you, right? Because I've seen that journey, and I've seen a lot of people go through the journey and you know get totally unhappy with the journey because they realize the salaries that they were getting in their large companies, the big fives was twice or thrice that the share price of those companies are growing up, and
Hmm.
you'd be very dissatisfied going in a startup. The reason I was able to do the startup was because I really believed there were some challenging problems that were out there. I believed I could solve them, and trying to work it in the organization that I was not feasible, and it was not possible, and that's what led me through the journey. I've seen myself in the past, right? I've seen myself be successful in the past, like I said, writing technologies, creating new technologies.
Hmm.
And for me it was just an evolution of the from where I was to actually starting a own company. And so that is what sort of led me through the path of sort of starting the company. And by the I would say I would be very lucky, because of luck I was able to get an exit from one of the companies. The other company is still got spun out into two companies, still running. So I'm happy about that too.
Wow, that is fantastic. And what have you learned about raising capital for your startups?
So raising
Right?
capital has various ways, right? So there is various ways to look at slice and dice things, right? So I'll tell you, when I started IONS Networks, I raised capital on day one. So I left a big company. I joined in as a founder and CTO, and I actually had the same salary that I was having in this large company, right? But then I realized, because I took money too early, the products were not defined. We had a very senior management team. I felt there were issues with with that, right? And I
Hmm.
worked very closely with VCs for that, but I found that there were lots of challenges because the people we hired were too early for the stage of the company we were, right? And so that
Hmm.
was one side of it. When I started NanoSec, I said, I'm going to take money as late as possible and only from people I know, because last time I raised money, and with working with VCs, we hired very early, and it wasn't really the best experience for me. The learning wasn't as much because we had all the people who were already experts at that field. So I wanted to
Hmm.
sort of not just get an exit, but also learn through the journey, right? And so this time I sort of said, okay, I'm going to delay my funding rounds and so on, and sort of that's what I did. So brought the product out to market, then sort of got some funding and took it from there. So the learnings were immense. Like I said, one of the biggest learnings that I found was, when you're talking to VCs, you're not selling a product. You're actually selling the opportunity. VCs are money
Hmm.
people, right? They're actually looking at dollars, right? If they can see dollars falling all over, that's what they want. That's what you should focus on. Most of the times I see engineers, they focus too much on the technology and the product. Hey, this is the product I'm building, this is the challenge.
Yes.
VCs do not actually care about that. If they feel you're the right person for the job, they feel that the opportunity is big enough. They feel that uh, you can help them get big money. They will put money in you, right? And I've seen that through the journey. Yeah, and I feel that's where I feel engineers sort of miss out, because they're focusing too much on the product. You're not selling to a customer, you're selling to a VC. And so selling has to be very different when you're selling to a VC versus a customer. So we should sell
Wow.
the opportunity versus the product itself.
Well said. Well said. And you are also the chairman of the board for the Silicon Valley chapter for the Cloud Security Alliance. So you definitely give a lot back to the community. Thank you for that. How did that come to pass?
So yeah, so this is again, through my entrepreneurship journey. One of the things that I realized, like I said, right, my journey from a technologist to a CEO was, my knowledge and my empathy of customers was not good enough. I did not know customers well enough to be able to create solutions that were perfect for them, right? I want to create solutions that will be very good for my customers, not just from a technology perspective, or also how easy it is to consume, how easy is it to use, how easy is it to deploy, how easy is it to sort of onboard, right? And when I first made my first products, I realized those were aspects that I was totally missing. And that's where I
Mm,
said, uh, I need to be working closely with groups, with teams, with the organizations where I can learn from customers, but also give back the technology aspect that I have. And that's where I sort of got involved with Cloud Security Alliance. Maybe not now, that was like a long while back. And
mm,
over the time, I was just a member of the Cloud Security Alliance. Over time, I became vice chairman. Right now, I sort of am the chair of the Cloud Security Alliance, leading a great group of people. We have
yes,
Mike Macado, who's the CISO of GoShippo. We've got Jem Gurkok, Moshmi, people from very diverse backgrounds, from Okta, from
yes.
Facebook, from all sorts of places, and we are able to work together. We come with our own angles, and we are able to sort of not just come together and sort of discuss things, but we also create events, and for the community, we sort of share our viewpoints regularly, bring in the best speakers, and sort of are able to give back to the community, and that's been very valuable for me.
Wow, that is quite amazing. And as a tech executive and
Mm,
CEO, one subject that is very important to me is just diversity in the tech field. I feel
mm,
like we are becoming more and more diverse. We're doing better, but maybe not as fast as I was hoping.
mm,
What do you think, from your experience, can tech leaders do to kind of help technology be more diverse, have more women and ethnically,
mm, 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 mm.
minorities, and just make cyber security and tech more diverse in general?
Correct, and I love that question. Right, I feel diversity is very critical, but when I see, and like you said, diversity is growing. Right, whether it's color, it's LGBTQ, it's women. Right, the
Hmm.
diversity is growing for sure. My take is diversity is not just in recruiting that you have to look at. You have to look at diversity even in views. As long as you have
Mm,
diversity in views, even once after you have recruited, that's when people feel involved, feel included, and that's where you can retain the talent but also hire the best and the most diverse talent. If you value
yes.
diverse views, you will recruit the highest talent. But if you do not value highest views, even if you have a channel which says you have to hire, and diversity is important, it's not going to work for you, because even if you hire them, they will not be satisfied. It's not just about hiring, it's about retaining, actually having a culture where you value that diversity, and that's when I think diversity actually flourishes. And I think that's very important, that for companies to sort of realize and know. I do not see companies focused on diversity from that angle. Because there's been a mandate, there's this push for diversity. I see a
Hmm.
lot of people say diversity, but they're sort of saying, okay, in the beginning of the channel we'll get some people who are diverse. Once you come in, I don't care, lots of time people will leave, and it's like, you know organization may look diverse, they may not necessarily be diverse, right? We have to make it diverse. You have to actually value those views, you have to actually nurture those views, you have to actually get them to sort of
Yes.
get them to positions where they can realize what they want, right, with those diverse views. And I think that's very important.
Wow, that is so key. So diversity in thoughts, experience, and way of thinking. But then also, when you get those people, making them feel included, right? Like
Exactly.
giving them a sense of belonging. Uh,
Exactly.
yeah, because I've seen some organization where, yeah, they want to be diverse and they want to hire you, but then they don't want to give you room to say anything, right? Or to provide your opinion
Exactly.
or thought. Yeah, no, that is really really key. Now, another organization you are a member of, that's where we met, is the exclusive Forbes Technology Council.
Mhm.
What was your journey there? How did that happen for you?
So interestingly, I was very lucky. Forbes actually reached me about a couple of years back to be part of the Forbes Technology Council, and I looked at it, and there was amazing people like you're part of the Forbes Technology Council. I know
Mm,
there are like, I know Carlos Signatoro. I think he's a Cisco CTO. He was there. I knew
yeah.
some other folks that oh no no no. Uh, there were lots of other people that I sort of saw. that were part of the Forbes Technology Council that I already knew, and it was a very easy decision for me to make. Of course, it took a bit of time. Instead of 2 years, I actually waited for a year, and finally, gave in and said, okay, this is something that I would love to be part of. Last 1 year has been amazing. I've sort of got to work uh, with a lot of people, lot of different leaders, lots of different views. So it's been an amazing journey for me at Forbes Council.
Wow. So now it gets to the part of my program. I want to ask you my
Mhm.
7 question. But before I do, is there anything else you would like to tell us about what you've learned about growing into the leader you are today? Going from being a maybe individual contributor and engineer to now being a CEO and founder.
Mhm.
What are your insights?
I think the key thing that I would say is, but from being a leader is a sort of a journey, right? You have to start off early. The earlier you start, the better it is, right? You want to take up leadership roles as soon as possible, whether it's a manager, it's a team lead. I think that will be great for people to sort of grow up the journey. And my take is be bold, right? That's also another very important thing. If you have to sort of people, if you have to sort of grow to be a good leader, you have to be bold. You have to be ready to fail. You have to be ready to sort of fall. Only then you can sort of successfully grow as a leader. My take is you have to experiment, you have to try new things. Those are so important to being good leaders. So if I was to tell people, try early, become leaders early. It's okay to fail, it's okay to sort of not be perfect, and it's absolutely normal, and you will fall for sure, you will fail for sure, and take it as a learning versus take it as a failure, and that's very important.
Wow, that is a great lesson. So, question number 1, what is the greatest lesson you have learned, and what's the secret of your success?
So so the greatest lesson I would say is empathy, right? Empathy,
Mm,
when I say it, I learned it from my wife, right? But when I see her, I sort of look at her on a daily basis, I learn from it. But I actually just gave an example to somebody I just talked to, right?
mhm,
I had a leader, right, as part of McAfee, right? His name is Rajiv Gupta. He was the CEO of Sky High, right? And he was the leader here of the cloud group. Earlier, he's now left and started his next company. What I saw with him was, right, there were people who were willing to go the extra mile for him and
mm,
do whatever it took, and they trusted him, over everything else, right? And the thing that I saw that he was able to do was, it was all because of the empathy that he had, right? And
mm,
what I found was interesting. I'll give an example, right? We were having a meditation session about 2 years back before COVID happened, right, in our office, and he was also part of that sort of same discussion, right? And he was part of the same sort of meditation session, right? And he was there. The meditation teacher told us, okay, close your eyes, typical thing, right? Think of beautiful things, recite something. And then they wanted us to have our feet touching the ground, right? Like, because we were doing meditation while sitting on the chair.
mhm,
And as a usual person, my team was there, I was sitting, and my feet were touching the ground, everything was good. Suddenly I see this guy go out and come back sometime later with 4 bricks. I'm like, what the heck is he doing? Then I see the girl next to me from my team sitting
mhm.
right next to me. She's a bit short, her feet were not touching the ground. This guy had actually gone out and brought these 4 bricks so that her feet would touch the ground, because the yoga meditation teacher had said, hey, your feet should be touching the ground, and that's essential. And I was like, man, I'm sitting next to this person, I consider myself a great leader, and then I have this thing that I could not even
Mhm.
observe or see. And that's when you see that kind of empathy, you see
Mm,
people go the extra mile for you, right? For sure,
yes.
they will go the extra mile. They will do things, right? And that is not just from a leadership perspective. It's also empathy towards your customers. When I can sit in the shoes of my customers, walk their steps, right? I can actually, and
Mhm,
have the empathy for that, I can build better products, right? This empathy is so important in every aspect of the journey, and that's the big lesson I have learned. And you asked me one more question, right? What is your sort of uh, secret to success? So from my perspective, I do not think I have been, success. I'm not very successful from with any stretch of imagination, as I would say, right? But you know I would say, one of the key things that has sort of defined me, that has helped me, like I said, create new companies, help me do things, is focusing on the why. I it's now a very
mhm,
common thing, right? When I'm sort of looking at, something that, a new product is required or new thing is required, I do not start off with, hey, what is the new requirement? I'm figuring out, okay, why is this a new requirement? What is changing? How do you
Mm-hmm.
extrapolate that requirement? So going all the way to the why has actually helped me be successful. So that's what I would say is sort of one of the sort of the reasons I think I find myself being successful. So empathy is sort of the big lesson I learned, and I think the why is sort of the one of the reasons I've been successful.
No, this is really, really important. I'm sure you've read the book by Simon Sinek,
Mhm.
right? Start with
Exactly.
why. Yes, that is so important because if you know exactly why you are doing something, because like you said earlier, obstacle will come. Sometimes you are going to fail, but what's going to motivate you to keep going and keep going? Like every time you fall, you get back up is because you have a very, very big why and you just won't let go. Uh, and I really
Hmm.
like what you said about empathy as well. Now, you and I, we live in Silicon Valley. There's a lot of great ego, I think, in this region. A lot of very smart people, great IQs and stuff, especially in the engineering community, right? Everybody's kind of like a genius. Everybody is so delicate. But I feel like what we need is more emotional intelligence, more empathy, more awareness of self and of others, right? Being able to work with people, and that's really a very, very big lesson to learn as a leader. Would you like to say anything more about that?
I think what you're mentioning is absolutely right. Like you said, the journey, knowing yourself is sort of the most important thing in the whole journey. Once you know yourself, then you can know others and help. Yes, knowing yourself is absolutely critical. And I think you're bringing at the right points. That yes, there are egos, and from my perspective, if you look at it the other way around, right, there are egos, but you know the egos are for a particular reason, right? And
Hmm.
we have to sort of be able to understand where they're coming from, why are they coming here, and as long as you understand that, those things that you see as issues actually become very explainable, and you can actually help tackle the issues that you have. And
Hmm.
that's how I see
That is really, really good. And the other question I have for you is, what are you learning now?
So, like I said, I'm now part of McAfee. So, McAfee, the learning for me is immense because of the fact that I'm now joining this large organization. Sorry about that. I'm now part of this large organization. Large organizations work very differently from small organizations. When I start my
Hmm.
startup, I define the culture. I define the how the company is, what sort of people come in. How do we make
Yes.
sure that the people are aligned? But once you get to a large company, it's not a culture that you define. It's a culture that was defined long back. It has
Hmm.
grown from what it was, has evolved. There are multiple teams with diverse priorities in a lot of cases are actually in direct clash with each other, right? And so there is a lot of you know different dynamics that are there in large companies, and that's been a big learning for me, right? Seeing how to work in these environments, how do you become successful in these environments, what does success mean for people who are working in these environments. It's so
Hmm.
different from what you would from a startup, right? In a startup, it's all about getting this thing out, becoming successful, do what it takes, right? Versus in
Yes.
these cases, it's a lot about how do you balance out things, how do you sort of make sure that it's a win-win when even when you're you may be at direct clash with the in priorities with another
Hmm.
person or another team. How do you find that win-win scenario? How do you convince people even though you do not have any power of those people? There's been
Yes.
great learnings for me, and it's been a great experience, and that's what I'm learning right now.
Wow. So becoming an influencer. Yeah, that is so important. So number three, how has failure shaped your life?
Failure is, I've like I said, I've failed more often than not, and that's because I've taken more risks than others would, right? And so that's been my journey, right? I've failed more often. I've been willing to take more risks, fail, and failure has shaped me because the way I look at it is I've always treated failure as a building block to success, as a learning experience, and that's what has been very, very sort of critical for me, right? And it's actually helped me define my journey. So I'll give you an example, right? I'm talking
Hmm.
to you. One of the reasons I agreed to talk to you despite the fact that we just began talking a few days back, right?
Hmm.
I was willing to, because I realized I'm not a great speaker, right? And talking is going to, of course, I'm not going to be the greatest speaker as I talk, but it's going to help me refine me, make me a better speaker as I talk more and more, and that's why I've been
Yes.
doing it. So that's been my sort of journey, and That's been my learning
Wow.
from failure. So push yourself, do more. Don't treat failure as failure. Treat it more as a learning.
That is a great, great lesson in life, especially for millennial and people just kind of starting in the workplace. They kind of expect sometimes success right away, and they
Mhm.
don't really take the opportunity to learn from their mistake. Because I always believe that failure and success are really two sides of the same coin. Actually, kind of like what you say, you kind of need to fail as quickly as you can, as often as you can, so you can learn from it, which is eventually going to lead you to success. Great, great,
Mhm.
great lesson. I think people can apply throughout their life. So, question number four: who do you know we should know? I know you already mentioned a great leader where people would go the extra mile for them, but we want to kind of know who are your mentors, thought leaders that you are following.
So, I mean, there are lots of people who have mentored me. I have to say, my journey in a startup would not have been possible without the great help of a lot of people, right? It's people I know, but also people I do not know. And in the
Yes.
valley, that's one thing I really have to appreciate. You know, people go out of the way to help you without even, in a lot of cases, knowing you, right? I've had so many people who've helped me, right? I can give you names of, like, there's a guy called Sargilai. He was my manager in
Mm-hmm.
HP. There's Bethany. She was the CEO of Ixia. There were, Dave Larson, he was my manager again at HP. He's now a CTO at Spirent. There've been so
Wow.
many people I've sort of worked with. I can tell you, that I've learned from. But if you were to ask me, right, who should you know? I think I'll go back to your question, the point that you brought up, right? Know yourself. You need to know yourself. You need, and that is most important. Like Sun Tzu, or the in the Art of War, has said, right?
Mm-hmm.
Know yourself, and you will win all battles. And I think knowing yourself is the first step in the journey, and then you can know others, and that's sort of what I would say. I know you would expect a slightly different
Good.
answer. Hey, talk to person A, B, and C, but those are the kind of things
Yes.
that I see so important.
No, that is so critical because if you know yourself, then you can really figure out what your purpose is, and I think it kind of sets you into the right direction for
Mhm.
you. And I think it kind of attract the right people into your journey as well. Wow, this is great. Thank you. Thanks so much. So number five, what have you read that we should read? What are some of the books you've been reading recently?
So what I read, right, I'll tell you the thing that actually inspired me, and this is pretty interesting, right? So I was, as a kid, not a kid, I would say, I just graduated out, and I was just working my first job. I read this book called The New Thing. This is by
Hmm.
Michael Lewis. It's about this entrepreneur called Jim Clark. He's founded three companies here in the valley. This is, I think, pre burst, right? This big burst, that the 2001 burst. It
Mm-hmm.
actually inspired me. It gave me a lot of energy, and that's actually, I would say, that is one of the reasons, right, that I am now an entrepreneur. It showed me the power of the entrepreneur, how entrepreneurs are working. In fact, interestingly, that book had people like, in that mentioned. I'll give you an example of Mark Andreessen, who's now the founder of the A16Z, right, the Andreessen Horowitz venture capital fund, right? There is Kittu Kalluri, who's mentioned in that. He's now the VC at NeoTribe. I think he's the founder and VC at NeoTribe. A lot of people
Hmm.
that I either now know indirectly or I could know directly, are actually mentioned in that book. It's a fascinating book, and I sort of, it actually gave me energy to start something, right? And this was gave me a good early start, maybe 20 years back or 18 years back, when I was sort of very early in my work life. What I've been learning more recently is slightly more diverse, right? So what I've been reading, in fact, to tell you the truth, if I look at what I was reading a few days back, it's like a book called the Biology Book, right? It's about, it's by, I think, Gloria and Michael, what's it, Gerard, I think, yeah, Gloria and Michael Gerard. It talks about, right from abiogenesis, how did life start. It goes all the way to things that things are right now. The thing that I found fascinating about this book was, when I read biology like 20 years back or 25 years back, biology was very different. I realized there's so
Hmm.
much more known in biology uh, now than what was known, even 20 years back. There are like new families, kingdoms that were not known. It's fascinating.
Yes.
And my take on the overall way we think about life is also the same, right now we think we know a lot, we have a lot of knowledge, we already know things, but as such, 10 years hence you'll realize what you knew was such a small thing, and the world there's so much
Hmm.
more to know and learn. And that's sort of the lesson I can tell you at a high level, that you could also learn from that the book on biology that I'm sort of now reading.
Wow. So the book is by Gloria and Michael. And what is the title? Is that the book on biology?
Yeah, it's called The Biology Book, I
The
guess.
biology book. Wow, that's pretty cool. That's pretty fascinating because I actually that's what I studied when I first started in college, biology and chemistry, and then I
Mhm.
almost earned a PhD in microbiology. So
Wow,
that was kind of like my
amazing.
first dream. I'm a trained scientist, and then I just stumbled into IT and now security. So I will definitely purchase this one and encourage our listener to please look into it. The biology book. Wonderful.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think I just found it on Amazon, and I'm gonna be adding those links in the comments section as well, so people
Absolutely.
can look at them. That is quite fascinating. So, question number 6: what have you done that we should do? What is one action you have taken that has positively impacted your life, you think?
So I think what have I done that you should? I think I looked at your profile, right? Again, I haven't been able to interact with you as much, right? And I see you've done great things, like you said, you've done studied in biology and chemistry, did microbiology, and done all these great things now in IT, doing cybersecurity, leading IT before this, right? That's amazing. I really love what you've done, right? It's a lot of learning. When I went through your profile on education, I could see I had to click it like 10 times. There was so much you've studied. That's like even more amazing, right? I'm like in awe of what you've done, right? If I was to sort
Okay.
of uh, s- tell you something, what you should be doing, I don't know. I would say it's hard for me to say, but just looking at your profile and what you've done, I would say maybe take more risk is what I would probably say, right?
Hmm.
On your work side, believe more in yourself, see what more you can do, right? And I think that's a learning for me. Challenge yourself, right? Things that you've seen impossible for you, you think, hey, this is something that I've seen people do, but I don't think I can do it. Don't get bogged down by that. Believe in it, work towards it, you'll do it. And that's the sort of the lesson that's positively impacted me, and I'm sure, hopeful that it will be something that can help you and impact you in your life.
No, this is very well. I think if everybody can definitely do this. And also, when I ask that question, I'm thinking about people who are young, like in their 20s, just getting started in their professional life. Many of them
Mhm.
have great aspiration. Like you, one day they want to become a founder or a CEO or a CTO or CISO
Mhm.
or CIO or something. And what would you tell them? What is one thing you think they kind of should focus on to kind of keep going after their dream and getting new experiences, just like you said. I think that is valuable.
Yeah, I think one thing that I'll say is about fear, right? As humans, we have this innate fear, right? Like of safety and being, uh, and keeping to a safe space. And my take is
Mm.
it's a normal human tendency, normal human behavior, right? Because we come from, if you look at how things were maybe even 100 years back, you could, if you at least if you moved out, you there was a big chance you could moved out alone, lived in a walk through a jungle, there's a high chance
Hmm.
you would be killed by a wild animal. So there's always been this fear. But now if you look at it, right, for most parts, if you look at engineers and people, they've earned enough money, they have enough in their bank account that they can live a good life. Again,
Yes.
how good it is depends. So instead, my take is, you know don't be bound by those fears. Try to sort of challenge yourself, and you will be able to be successful, is what I would sort of again repeat.
Wow. Thank you so much. You have been so kind with your time. I know you're super busy. Thank you for being here. And now we're coming to the very last question. How can we add value to you?
So from my perspective, right, you've been a great you are in the cybersecurity field. You've done great things, right? I would love, and I've been an entrepreneur. We have so many ways we can collaborate, right? Like, hey, we could do podcasts, like you said, right? We could on cybersecurity, because we're in the same field. We could do podcasts on leadership. We could do discussions on so many other things there. Because I'm an entrepreneur, I continuously need feedback on what I'm thinking, what I'm doing, what I'm feeling, right? You could provide me feedback on that. So there are lots of ways to collaborate. I know we can decide on some of them, and I'm sure we'll come back and work more on that as we move forward.
Well, thanks again, Vishwas. It was really great talking to you. So again, we started a little bit late on this podcast, but I think everything you've said is extremely valuable, and our listener will definitely be able to use some of those wisdom nuggets to become better leader and also achieve greater level of success. But one trend I'm seeing in everything we've talked about is we really should never be satisfied with wherever we are at, right? Like success is a journey. It's not like the end. It's not like you go from point A to point B and that's done. You don't have anything more to learn or do. It's like challenging yourself to go higher and higher and higher and do more and add value to your community. Any last parting word you would like to say?
Yeah, I would say believe in yourself, and you do
Yes.
well. I think that's what I'll say. Believe in yourself.
Outstanding. Well, with that, we are going to say goodbye for now. And thank you so much for watching the Leadership and Success podcast.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you for listening to the Leadership and Success Podcast with your host, Coach BZ. If you like what you heard, please subscribe to our channels and come back for more wisdom nuggets on how you may develop into a better leader and achieve greater levels of success. Leadership is the most critical skill. The world will always need leaders to lead others, deploy the next disruptive technology, or execute a business strategy. You may as well decide on counting yourself among the 21st century leaders. See you right here next time on the Leadership and Success Podcast with Coach BZ.